what I draw can be controversial because it's very like oriented to like pin-ups and girls and big boobs. For me, it was a way to make a living. Instead of like thinking about, oh, I'm gonna join a studio, it's easier to have a foundation, like strong foundation of my own work that I can feed to the people who have been like following for like 10 years already.
In this episode, I sat down with Reiq. He's an illustrator known for his pinup and fan art illustrations. We talk a little bit about his experience finding his path as an artist, and how painting what he likes has really helped him find his own style and navigate the creative world. We also talk about a little bit of his experience painting somewhat controversial things and what that's meant for his career. If you'd like to support me, by the way, please consider checking out the links to the things in the description. Your guys' support really does help me make more content like this. Also, please like and subscribe. That really does help the algorithm and all that kind of stuff. Thanks, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
So the way I usually start these podcasts is the point of this is not to talk about how to become a great artist or how to, get a job or how to make it sustainable even. It's more about like the why of doing it. And I think that in general, I mean, a lot of people who are talking all the time about like, how do I get a job? How do I, make all this stuff? Like, how do I essentially get status? How do I look outside of myself for purpose, especially as an artist? Versus like what I think is more important is looking internally inside yourself to find enough reason to do it for 40 or 50 or 60 years, like, and trying to make it like a lifelong endeavor versus something that's like you kind of get burnt out at or kind of tired of at a certain point.
That makes sense. I guess like I don't know how many people you have like interviewed that are part of like the industry or they're working already or they have been doing a lot of like work with entertainment. In my case, I think I'm on, I wouldn't say like a special case, but on a different case than those artists because I haven't done any work with the entertainment industry per se, but I have to rely on my work from the very beginning to survive, by doing commissions and like to be, well, Prince came later, but when I started, I was just doing some illustrations for some people here and there, some commissions for some people outside of Venezuela. And that's how like I started doing more commissions because it was a chance for me to work as an illustrator. So that was my main like aim at the beginning, and because of that I made my name online, where I was like going through like a school or finding like connections and then going through to get to know the business that is inside the country. Like here in the US, it's a big entertainment like complex, right? Where in Venezuela it's something that is like a hobby, not taken seriously. And for me, that was like the chance to like, well, I think I could do this and transition from like being a graphic designer to start doing more art.
Yeah.
And so I rely a lot on the internet back in the early 2000s for that, which is a little bit different, but I get why people want to like, what is the best way to get into working in the industry and all of that. Because you have to also support yourself while you do all of this, right? And finding the answers for it, or even have the confidence to like, oh, you know what, I'm gonna sell my stuff.
Yeah,
I know a lot of people who are really good, but they're, oh, can I sell my stuff? Like, would people buy it? It's like, I think so. I also had the same issue. I was just doing my commissions, but like sell it. I don't know if I'm good at it, but I'm gonna try it.
Yeah,
especially being online, I used to live in different countries, so like getting used to like, oh, how I'm gonna ship these things and how I'm gonna like deal with that, like logistics of it. That was a challenge, and could be a challenge for other people who are like, let's say South America or different countries that are not the main ones like dealing with the industry, right? So you have to like find a way to learn.
Yeah. Well, and trying to make it work. And I mean, it seems like often the like having the perfect path, like born in Southern California, going to a place like Art Center, very, very young, all this stuff, having a full ride and being born in the perfect spot, knowing all the right people is not even close to a guarantee that you're going to be able to be a professional artist or be able to make it professionally, I think part of that is like, art to me is not like a logical endeavor. A lot of it seems very emotional and very like, potentially like ego driven or like driven towards the things that you genuinely like and enjoy. And it seems to me like, like the work that you do is non-conventional in terms of bandwidth. You would expect to be successful, on like a traditional media portraying. But you've been able to build this life for yourself, build this community online of people that follow you. You have this like really impressive body of work just from doing things that you genuinely enjoy doing, And I think a lot of people have trouble, and I know I'm speaking from experience, but having trouble listening to that internal voice to do the thing that you like doing, even though that it might be not conventional in terms of like the path that you're supposed to go down.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't know what kind of path I was gonna have at the beginning. I definitely didn't have even I think my path was defined like later on in life. It wasn't like at the start, I want to be an artist, I want to do this. I thought more about it in terms of the skill, like, oh, these people are like who are doing this cover for comics are doing this, I can do it. So that was my mentality like at the beginning, and then like that was like the aim for me to learn without being able to go to any school or anything. So like a lot of tracing or like looking at things and copying just for myself, not thinking about like I'm gonna have a career on this. But definitely, like when I found a way to commercialize whatever I had or sell it, then you start like thinking about that side of like, oh, I can sell some things, I can do these things, and I guess like what I draw can be controversial because it's very like oriented to like pin-ups and girls and big boobs and these things, and it's like sexy and all that, but for me, it was a way to make a living. Yeah. It still is a way to make a living, right? And I didn't feel like, oh, I was like doing something wrong or anything. Maybe because I'm from Venezuela and we have a lot of sexy, beautiful girls all the time, like walking in the street. Well, back then, I don't know about now. So we are used to that, like, when you see like girls like in Brazil, like samba dancing, like with a full figure dancing. So we're like we're used to that. So the country, it tends to, you look at the sexy girl on the street and it's very common where they're like big boobs and they're sexy because they're showing off. So it's kind of natural where like in other culture or other places, like, oh my God, like that guy is so perverse, so sexualized. Like, well, that's part of the Venezuelan thing. Like one of the reasons we have so many was it like beauty pageants and we are really famous, or we won so many times, like in the 80s and 90s, even in the 2000s, because we were focused on that beauty, like makeup, hairs, and all of that. I was like, well, I'm also like attracted by that, being a teenager, it's like you look on TV, it's like, well, that's hot, I want to draw that. But to me, like, that served as a way to like get work, right? Oh, I want you to draw my character, and so I'll draw the character. Oh, that's very sexy. Can you draw these other characters? I'll start doing that, and then not only because I want to draw this character that is sexy and all that, I just want to like also try these kind of colors or try these pose or try these things. So every time I get a job, it was to include something that I wanted to try or test.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and to me, the path of finding your voice as an artist or your style or whatever, your career, is a lot more to do with like self-exploration and really not knowing what it's going to be from the very beginning. Like, I would suspect like if you went to, 15-year-old you would have been able to predict the trajectory that your career has taken. Yeah. And it's like, in a way that's like, it's crazy. It's totally insane. Like having people buy your artwork or having X amount of followers online or whatever. No, like no one starts out at the finish line. It kind of manifests itself in a way. It just, and again, I think it always comes back to like pursuing your authentic, true self, as much as you can.
Yeah, and talking about that, because it's a good point to put it out, because I started as a self-taught artist, like trying to find whatever information and learn from that, kind of going like blind, trying to figure out something that looked good, and I thought it looked good, and there was like a lot of struggle. Through being able to do that, like illustration, like pin up artwork, even like hentai at that moment, I found a way to like save money to study. And once I got the chance to study and come here and study for like a year and a half and be able to like invest in my education later on, that I gained so much knowledge. Like I was so hungry to like be able to like know everything. I like the 3D storyboarding, like painting, like watercolors, like figure drawing, like everything I never had a chance to learn like 10 years before. I just put all my time and energy to do that. And because of that, I found my way like morphing into something weird where my work was like Disney with big leaps, and then like, you know, like it was like mutating for a period of a time. But as an artist, you have to do that to evolve the work, right? Because, you know, like I got backlash. Oh, you're changing. Why are you changing these things? Like, why are you drawing that way? You used to draw this way, and now like you're doing this. And I was like, dude, I don't care. I'm learning and growing, and I'm going to take all that information and maybe I'm going to go and work in the industry, right? Like finally, this is my moment to go and do it. And I started going to like CTNX and getting my CD portfolios and put my stuff together. I was like, oh, maybe storyboarding, maybe I can do some character designs or more figure drawing, like character, like acting and all that. So I thought about it, but when I finished studying, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna put my stuff together and I try to go to the entertainment industry. So unfortunately I was like a tourist, so I had to go get out of the United States and then come back again. But when I came back like after 6 months, they told me like, dude, you've been here for like a whole year. Like that's kind of soon. What were you doing? So they put me in immigration for like 7 hours, probably longer. I missed my flight to come here to California. I was in Miami, and they told me, well, after showing him and proving that I was an artist, I was doing all of this stuff, and he's like, oh, I love your work. It's pretty nice. Like I convinced them and turned it into like a fan. They're like, you know what, how long do you want to stay? I was like, well, I don't know, a week. I don't care. I can just go back. I was just, you know, wanted to take another class, right? And they're like, I was like, well, we're going to give you a month. So they gave me a month, and I was like, well, now I cannot be in the industry or do these things right now because my plan is fucked, basically. So I had a chance because I saved money doing my erotic artwork. I was like able to go to Europe and then wait there while I was like processing my way to like get my green card process starting, right? And when I got here and I got my green card, I was like, now I can work, but I can also work on my own stuff. And I have people who like my work. And I already have this base built, right? And like, well, I'm going to put all the stuff I have learned into my own work, instead of like pleasing and trying to get into somewhere. And for me, I think the pivotal point to me was when I went to Norman school, because they had visas. So I was like, oh, I can be here for like a year and study Norman. This is my path. Maybe I do 3D or something. I was like, or some kind of like concept design. And it was like really expensive first. It was expensive, but the first day that we arrived, it's like, welcome to Norman. There's something important we have to do the first day. You have to name the 3 first companies you want to work with. And I'm like, I didn't think about that. And everybody was like, Sony, Square Enix, or like,
Blizzard, right?
Blizzard, or Riot. And I was like, oh no. Like, so it was like, well, you're here to work for the company, to be part of the mechanism and the machine. You're going to be a gear in the whole thing. And I was like, okay, these guys are being trained just to work in there. And I felt like that's not me. That's not me. And I could probably try to do it, but do I see myself? And I saw everybody like working until late, like trying to do some 3D modeling. I did some 3D modeling. I was like, oh man, this shit is like a lot of work, and it's like, and it looks horrible. My 3D was like, okay, So like, I was like, okay, these people are way advanced. I have to understand a lot of things. And I really want to draw and paint. That's what I want to do, because I was taking like some classes of like drawing and sculpture in Normal at the same time, because they had to put art fundamentals with 3D. So I was like, oh, this is the cool stuff I want to do. So I quit Normal, and that's where I tried to come back here and study and do all of that stuff. So because of that, the point is that instead of like thinking about, oh, I'm going to join a studio or anything, which would be obviously nice, it's easier to have a foundation, like strong foundation of my own work that I can feed to the people who have been like following for like 10 years already. So I had that there. So, and I was like, yeah, that's the best way. So I put all the time to do that, go to conventions, experience what is to, you know, be an artist here, and probably have like first do my first artist alley 2015, right? Oh, and experience all of that I couldn't do before. And I was like, okay, this is the path to do. And that was the most rewarding thing, like to put all of that. And instead of like only like, well, I just improve my work, I was like, I'm going to try different styles. And I try different things like, and I try to become more like, specializing in changing styles. Because, you know, people were like, oh, that's what my aim was and still is. If you told me, I'll draw something more realistic, I can go there. Or I can do something more like anime, or more like American, or more like more European style. Then I can like morph into those things. And as I was morphing, I was like including that into my work. So now I have different like dials that I want to put, like more anime, more like more anatomy, less anatomy, more color, less color, more simplicity. Because I tried and experimented all of those things that are now part of my style that I can bring, and I can pivot. Right? I can do like cute girls or whatever, but I can do something completely different that's told like the people will also enjoy. And that's where I get my reward. Cause like, well, I'm not trapped into like what I expected. I can provide it, but I can change gear if I want to, and then do something completely different and then come back again. So it is that rotation that kept things going.
When I talk to people, it's for the reason why I think finding your why is so important, just as a person, like beyond being an artist. Because most of art, I think, is suffering, you know? A lot of like, oh man, I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay in this country. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this job. I don't know if I fit into this specific pipeline or school or social media or whatever. You know, it's always that. It's always like, it's extremely difficult to not look outside of yourself and not think that you're good enough, you know? And I think without those internal reasons pointing you forward, you know, driving you to be like, oh man, I'm at no man, I don't quite fit in here. I'm going to go try something else versus stopping right there, you know? And I think that comes in just from like, like you knowing what you really wanted to do, being okay, like, oh, I'm not a 3D guy, or I'm not wanting to work in these pipelines, versus being like, oh, I don't fit into this pipeline specifically, so there's nothing I can do. There's no world and edge I can exist where I'm a valid artist. And what I believe now is that everyone has a totally valid voice, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Well, on this podcast, I have people who are fine artists. I have people who are like rock climbers. I have people who are, you know, like business people or whatever. It's just a wide variety of people. And they all like have crazy stories on how they got to where they were. Tons of failure. For Proco, the story that I repeat a lot is that Stan wanted to be a Disney animator. He applied to CalArts and he was, you know, denied from CalArts. And then, you know, from one perspective, he's a failed animator. From another, he's a giant YouTuber. And both are true, you know? And I think as an artist, if you focus on the negative ones, that's what's going to manifest itself as the real one.
Yeah, the flexibility is super essential. Like having that, like you're saying, right? Like, don't focus on the bad thing. Oh, I failed being an animator. Well, what other things I can do that are related to that I can enjoy, and find different path to it. Because like, it's not like one set stuff. Like, oh, I want to do that for because that's what I want to do. Maybe try other things, and then you find other passions and other things that are available to you that you didn't know you were really good, and then you actually enjoy because you were focused on like, oh, I just have to be the thing.
I have to be, you know, I have to be this concept artist, or I have to be this animator. And I think it's like the reality of all this stuff is, you know, the world is constantly changing and it's constantly shifting. And the amount of money somebody makes as an artist is not, you know, I don't think that's a valid value to rank people on the higher or lower hierarchy list of who's the best artist or not. You know? But I think it's easy because, you know, we need to pay rent, we need to pay bills and all that kind of stuff. But I think internally it matters most, like what you're doing it for. And before the podcast started, we were just talking about AI, you know, what's the heck in your industry specifically. And a thing that I ask most people on my podcast is, like, would you be doing the same thing you're doing right now if you had $1 billion? And I suspect you would still be painting. In the same way that, like, even if AI totally disrupts this industry you're in, you're still going to find a path forward to doing the things that you want to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I will be doing the same things I'm doing the same way. But yeah, I'm not sure if because I think like when you do art for a long time, and that's more like my personal like storm that I was thinking about, is like, as an artist, you spend so much time sitting down, doing the art, doing just painting and doing all of this, that you find yourself like, man, I haven't enjoyed all the things in life because I'm just sitting here for 12 hours and I have missed this chance to do these other things or meeting these people or doing all of that. So I've known people or other artists that they just focus on the work, and that's because I've done the same before, like working on the art, and it's just art, and you just wake up and 3 days just doing a piece and all of this, and it's awesome. But there's a point later in life that you're like, yeah, I would like to be outside in a park, chilling, and not have to do any of this stuff for a while, because you need to have your waves to be able to do it. Yeah, what was my point?
Well, yeah, in general, I think being a person and being like a happy person seems actually pretty simple. It's like people can have these modest lives. People don't need $1 billion. They don't need 1 billion followers or anything, but I think we often look at people who are living these idyllic lives as movie stars or great artists or something, and it's easy to abstract that down into, oh, that person must be balling out and they must be having the greatest time in their life. And I think as humans, there's this propensity to look forward into the future, to be like, I'm going to be happy when I do this thing, when I get, again, the followers, when I have this level of artwork.
Yeah, the pursuit of that.
Versus like, I can be happy right now. Like a thing that I've been thinking about with this podcast lately is I would like to have a massive YouTube channel. I would like to have aspirationally like recognition, and I come from a place of insecurity, but also like I'm trying to look at these things as more like as long as we've had the conversation, as long as we've like got to talk about stuff, it's already a success, And I think trying to look at things more that way, like, oh, I had the chance to draw, it's already a success. And I think that actually leads, ironically, to more success externally in the long term.
Yeah, I understand that, but I think you're right, definitely. You're right, because that's the right approach, but at the same time, you have to have a dry look at the current status of where you are.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, well, I don't have enough followers, or I would like to have more followers. Not because you want to have more followers. It's because you want your message to be reached to more people, right? Not because I want to see a number that is higher. Obviously, that's something that happens, right? Like I post something on YouTube, oh, I see the number going up, I'm so happy. But that's like nothing, right? Like the next time you're like, you want to see it again, it's like, oh, it went down like 5 people. What happened? I fucked up. Like, so you become attached to that number, but the idea is to send a message. So how can I send the message? Well, how can I advertise or in a way to reach more people? So that's when you have to be like, oh, I'm not an artist anymore. Let me put my hat. But now I have to advertise. Now I have to like, how can I make this the honest way? Where people say advertise, people are just selling out. But it's not selling out. It's you have to show what you got in the right way, and the right way that fits that moment, right? And that's the hard part to like gauge, right? I want to go and make this advertisement. I'm going to put it in the outside and people will see it. And it's like, no, maybe you just need to like hand some flyers somewhere, and then the things start like rolling and rolling and rolling. Because maybe right now you see it that way, but maybe you need some more like a better like graphic design presentation. So when people see it, it's like, oh, I like the visuals. It's nice. I'm now engaged, right? So maybe there's something that is missing in there that you don't see it, but you can see it. You can say, well, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. Yeah, but you still want that growth. It doesn't have to be huge. right? But it has to it grows organically, but at the same time you have to push how organically is growing, right? So that's part of the strategy that I feel like artists need to have. Like a lot of artists that I know, I will say like a lot because I know a lot of different artists, but a good chunk of them, especially the older ones, is they are happy just because they are doing a commission and that's it, and somebody else take care of the money, which that could be a way. But you're doing that commission and you're like getting another job and then you're doing the job and then you're doing, if you're happy with that, then it's awesome. But what happens, because I heard people like, oh man, I really don't want to do that piece, or I really don't want to do that, but I already had it because I say yes, and now this next one is happening, and then it's trapping in that ball, in that circle, right? And it turns into that, but then you're just in there instead of like, well, what is the work that I have? How can I sell this? How can I have this for the people? How can I make the most optimal usage of the work that I did, right? Because I've spent like 3 days doing this piece. How much can I squeeze that artwork to give me something back so I can survive, and then it can push me forward, right? So you have to be strategic as well of what you do. Like, what kind of artwork are you gonna do next, right? What is the purpose of that work? Maybe in between you have some works that are personal, but there you need something like, well, if I do this character, or if I do this thing specific in this way, which I really want to do also, it will be the best option for where I am or the crowd that is around me. So you have to like make those decisions in terms of what is going to propose, or where is the segment of your niche once you have already a certain amount of followers. It doesn't have to be that many, but there's a reason why they're following. So like, what will be the next piece that will double that or triple that? You know, and it's dry, but at the same time, the world is also cruel.
Yeah.
And it's dry, and people see the numbers and they're like, oh, well, maybe no, this guy is not that good. But you say that's just weird way of thinking, right? You have some numbers. So you're like, yeah, you have to be dry, but you have to like also get sometimes stop being an artist for a little bit, and then look at a lot of like business strategies, right? Read books about other people who are like trying to get their own brands, or what is branding and how do you make branding work for you, and what do you need. And then you figure out like, well, I need different things. I need a budget. I need to know a little bit of graphic design. Or I need to hire somebody who is good at graphic design that can recommend me how to improve my strategy to have a better presentation, because presentation is important, right? At the same time as your own journey.
Right. Well, and finding a balance between the art brain and the business brain, and trying to do it in the way to where you still want to do it and it's still fun and enjoyable, Yeah. And I think like that there is a fair amount of art making and trying to be yourself that has to happen for people to resonate with it. But then a fair amount of that you have to also sacrifice just to be able to, like have your stuff seen by people, to exist in a marketplace, to be able to like do commerce, and I'm a giant fan of Rick Rubin, the music producer, and he's always just talking about how often art making is like a diary entry or something, and trying to monetize purely your diary entries is a really quick way to burn yourself artistically. Whereas if you create, something as like an exercise in commerce or trying to make a business, you're able to remove your ego from it. And in some ways it actually becomes more creative because you're no longer tying your identity to this thing that you're trying to create. And I think often we get tied up with our babies, the things that we supposedly care about, that we dream about. Like, a lot of people dream about like, oh, I'm going to make this graphic novel. Now it's going to be the thing that puts me on the map. And there's so much thinking that gets put into it that it actually never gets finished or never gets done. That's, it's too high scope, and it seems to me like, again, like going back to like us having this conversation is already a success. I'm trying to do the thing that I'm willing to do versus the thing that, and I think in general, like it's helpful for artists in general to hear this, but doing the thing that I'm willing to do versus the thing that I would really want to be doing, which is like, in a perfect world, if I had infinite resources, we would like be in some epic studio. I'd have some crazy microphones and cameras, maybe like like the podcast itself would be a lot more substantial, but I just can't do it at this stage. So trying to do it in a way that like I can actually do right now versus waiting until some eventuality to where like it's perfect or something,
So what you were saying, that it's like waiting for the right moment to do something, right? That that's something that plagues like everybody, right? Like, I don't think like whatever level you are, it affects you, like waiting for that moment. And for me, it happened like a long time ago. It still happens, actually. Happens all the time. When I finish this work, I'm going to be able to focus on my thing. Yeah. When I do these things, I'm going to be doing that. Even right now, I'm finishing that cover because I want to do my own thing. So like you're like thinking, it's waiting for that moment to take action. And it's hard to realize that, to realize like, well, I'm doing that to myself. I'm just imposing new things to do right now because I have to confront the things that I have to do anyway in the future. And yeah, like in the past was like, why are you not working in a company, right? Like some artists, like when I would go like, hey, this is my portfolio. Like, why are you not working in these companies and stuff? Like, well, first I'm not in the country. I cannot like join any company, but I'm in this bubble that is the internet. So things are going fine in there. But I feel like, oh man, I'm not doing these things. I want to be in a convention. I want to be doing this stuff, meeting the people that have been supporting me. And when I got the chance, I was like, okay, now I can do it. But I wish I had done like earlier, right? But you cannot spend a lot of time like thinking about like, oh, which I have done. Like, okay, well, it didn't happen. Like, move on, right? Like. But at the same time, be aware of like, what is your resources, and is it realistic? Is that a realistic goal that you're putting yourself to do? Yeah. Not going to do a comic and it's going to be like 120 pages. It's like, well, how many comics have you done? Like, well, I only did like 2 pages, like 5 years ago. Well, man, like you're putting a big project in your back that is really hard. So if you start like little by little, maybe doing some storyboard, maybe sketching some thumbnails, and then maybe make the story, and then you might come up with some other idea. But you gotta like put a big goal in front of you.
Yeah.
So quickly.
Well, yeah, and like often people might use that as actually like a procrastination tool. I like, unless I'm working at this giant company that I really admire, I'm doing this comic book or whatever, then it's not worth doing. And again, it's going back to the why thing. I think, again, most of artwork is digging holes, like even for doing images that end up getting seen by 1 million people or something, a lot of it is just shading spheres, or shading clothes or something. A lot of it is just like, comparing 2 different value compositions or whatever. A lot of it is mostly boring, And at both stages, whether you're a complete professional, like amazing, or tons of accolades, all that kind of stuff, or you're a complete beginner. The hole digging is always the same. And I think the more people are able to lean in and find some amount of like solace from like a Buddhist perspective and just a simple, modest life, I think that leads more to doing the work than having these lofty, crazy goals of like, oh, I'm going to make this movie, or I'm going to make this, this magnum opus, this Hail Mary that's going to solve all my problems.
Yeah, that's a good way to fall really quickly. But I think like that what is important to keep in mind is that where you are at life, you need to know where's that threshold where you are fine. Yeah. Like, oh, I can cover all my rents. I can cover all of these things. I still have money for this stuff. Like, I can cover all of these expenses and in a good point to like actually take some time and do something different, right? Or like, oh, now I can do something. Like I can do that drawing that I wanted to do because now I have support from people, right? Yeah. And I said to people, and maybe now there are other platforms for sure, but a couple of years ago, I tell people like, wait, dude, why don't you work and open your Patreon, right? Open a Patreon or a way to support yourself. And they're like, oh yeah, man, but like I have to like how many things I have to do a month? How do you do it? And how many illustrations I have to put in there every weekly? Now I have this commitment with these people and they're supporting me. And then I was like, bro, calm down, man. It's like, calm down. Like, if you have some photos where you do, like some of them that already have like a good support, they will go there and you will like, they will support your work, and then you will put some illustrations, and you will do some things. You have some compromises, but also don't offer like, oh, I'm gonna do 5 illustrations every month for you, and I'm gonna like, cause you're setting yourself your own goals that this is good enough for like the people who are joining. So you have that own pressure, right? Which is like, well, it's good to have a compromise, but at the same time, it's like, well, don't overstretch yourself to create all of this content every month because you have to do it because the patrons are there, because they're gonna, like, then you're gonna have a bad time. And some people didn't start the Patreon because of that. It's like, what am I gonna put there? It's like, well, dude, you have sketches, you can record something, you can like make a video about the interview, you can just say like, well, you're here to support this, and I'm doing these drawings, and you're gonna have something else, like try to offer something, right?
Yeah. Well, and being okay doing it badly, like expecting yourself, okay, I'm not going to be the best, most talented person in the room. And it's not even about that. It's not even about being the most successful at all. It's about just like saying whatever your truth is, And I think that often, again, we do get caught up in the quality of it being the most important part of it being like an artistic endeavor at all.
Yeah, you want to do your best job too. But surprising enough, like a lot of people want to see behind the scenes. They want to see the sketches. They want to see what you thought, like what you scraped that you didn't like, and why that change that happened, right? Because it's like, well, I always see the final piece and it's nice, but when you see the process, like, oh man, that's kind of cool. Like, I like how it changed from here to here, right? Something that I did or start doing. I don't know how many other people are doing that, but it's like I did a lot of pieces without a lot of knowledge. Some of them I was getting some kind of knowledge about art, and then now I'm in a good place where I have like I can self-diagnose my pieces. So I go back to some old ones. And it's like, well, all of this is good, but the face is ugly. Or like, I didn't do it the right way. Oh, look at these mistakes. So I'm just going to paint over it. I'm just going to spend like 2 hours painting over it. And then, like, I did it. I was like, actually, it looks like a renewed drawing that was like back then good, but I kind of like bring new life to it. Right. And so people think like, well, that drawing is from 10 years ago. I will not touch it ever again. Like, no, I mean, like, you see artists from the past, they were like, oh, how long did it take to do that, took that painting? Like, oh, it's like 30 years. Yeah. Damn, so that your own work can still move forward, right? So it's not like, oh, I did that already, so I cannot do that anymore.
Yeah, well, a big part of it seems like compare yourself to yourself versus other people.
Yeah, you can see how much you improve. Like, you can see all the stuff. And, and I guess being your own artist and a freelance and doing your own thing is like, you have to value your, like, self-diagnose, like I said already, like where I'm failing, or I wouldn't like say failing, what I'm lacking, right? At the beginning I had like great colors and everything, but my values were really bad. I didn't know what the fuck was the values, right? Values are black and white, but I'm not doing black and white, I'm doing colors. I was like, well, later on, it's like, well, okay, colors fits with the value, and if you don't have the right value, the eye doesn't read the shapes. And I was like, oh man, they definitely didn't pay attention to that area. Let me see on my work. I turn off the saturation. It's like, oh my God. Because people are like, is that leg connecting to the arm becoming one? It's like, no, you can see they are separated. And then now, oh man, the values are like the same value. I was like, okay, let me just change that. I was like, oh. So you get excited because you can fix all this stuff that you didn't know.
Like going back and forth from like, studying the fundamentals and studying and like actual drawing, and then applying that to the artwork that you're trying to create, and it's a common thing, at least among students, where they get caught up in the fundamentals, like nothing but fundamentals trap, and like they give up any form of self-expression just to catch up in some perceived way to where they think they should be from like a fundamentals or draftsmanship perspective.
Yeah.
And I think the reason anyone is able to develop as an artist is that back and forth, is that like, oh, I try a thing, it didn't work out exactly the way I wanted it to. So it then informs what I should study, and I'm sure you're still doing that now, still going back and forth and being like, okay, I need to improve this thing. I'm going to do figure drawing and stuff. And all that
Yeah,
stuff.
like you lose you lose all of the skills because you're like painting, right? I guess if you're like focused on one thing, like, oh, I just do the pencil and somebody does the ink and somebody does the color, then wow, you're gonna be an amazing artist. Like just drawing that. I'm not saying that you cannot ink, but when you have to do the drawing, the inking, and then you focus on painting, your brain, at least how I work, my brain is just thinking about color, bouncing light source and materials and the reflection and this and that and lighting, and then your brain is in there, and then like after like 3 days you have to, I need to draw something. Oh man, like how can I okay, so you have to go back to that, and then you're like, oh, painting, oh no, think about light and think about these things. So it's like different muscles that you have to keep like just working out all the time, right?
Well, and digging holes, it's doing a lot of tedious work and stuff. And like the act of drawing is pretty boring. The act of painting is pretty boring. And it's all about, taking something that is pretty mundane and trying to find some interest in it.
Yeah, you'll be surprised. Like a lot of people will draw something and then do it like one sketch and then do the line art. And like, man, you have no idea how many times I have to go over the same sketch. And then I just do the doodles and then just sketch it again and then just shift it and then move this other stuff and then play with it and then flip it and then turn it around and then work on it some more and then leave it for a few days and then come back and do these things until like you mold it. It's like, okay, this is great. Now I can move forward. A lot of people is like, no, I just did some drawings and during the week and I did these 5 drawings and how many times you draw the pose? The same pose? Only once.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. No, well, you're not gonna get any benefit from that. Like, try to draw like 3 times and then change it, and then not look at anything and just try it on your own and to see what did you actually remember? Because when you're thinking, you're like, oh, I'm gonna draw this. Oh, I remember that line and I remember that shade that goes up in there and then the crevice and then the lighting hitting there, and then that's where you're like, okay, now I'm getting all the information back from that. But if I just only one drawing, I have a bunch of drawings, but I don't even remember. Like, I have to be like repetition, but observation, but also like taking the time to like, what did I just draw? What did I learn from that drawing? Did I learn something new, or are you just doing the same lines I always do because it feels nice?
Well, yeah, and trying to think about that stuff intentionally too. And I think, there is this impulse to, from people that I talk to like, they ask like, how many head drawings should I do? Like how many drawings?
How many hours you practice a day?
Yeah. So the amount that feels fine, I think. And it's, I think with drawing, my biggest problem with art education in general, is that it is such a self-exploratory thing. A lot of it is just experimenting in your room by yourself at every stage. And that trying to quantify like how many hours of this thing do I need to study? How many hours of card drawing or planar painting or figure drawing do I do before I get good at that? And the answer is like, you don't stop, that's like you do it because it's fun and interesting. And the experimenting is what gets you through it. It's not the, once you do 10,000 hours, then you'll be finally good enough to, to be a professional or something.
Yeah, there is no limit. And also like, some people use the same material all the time. Oh, I just draw with my paper pencil, but have you tried with a marker?
Yeah.
Because try to do the same drawing with a marker and then now try to do with ink and then try to do with watercolor or something different, right?
Yeah.
And you will get a different drawing totally, right? But if you don't try that, because some people like are drawing with this very like thin line and then you look at it and say, yeah, but there's no contrast or anything. Like, try this pen. Like, oh my god, like that thick. Yeah, dude, try that and figure it out, put some shadows and mess it up and duplicate it, make another copy and try different colors. Like, change the color of your pencil at least, right? And then you're like, oh wow, I never thought that this is now my favorite material. And then you create your career based on this new material that you found that you love it.
Well, yeah, like Austin, I think that's like the thing that's part of the thing people are missing by asking those questions sometimes is that like that's the actual advice, is not to use a specific pencil or use Photoshop over Clip Studio or which Senkichi use. It's that exploratory nature of it, just trying random shit. Like like we were talking just now about like you're playing the piano and the drums as an creative outlet. I'm sure like philosophically that's influencing your art making somehow, or like other things that you're doing. Like my van podcast, it's almost it's about drawing and paintings kind of, but it's more about like like esoteric weird stuff, but it absolutely influences my day-to-day life in some way, and I think having other pursuits, creative pursuits outside of drawing and painting, and that don't necessarily have to be these things that you're not or have to you have to make a living from or any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that for me was something that took me a good amount of years, because I'm like, what do you do? I'm an artist and I draw and I love looking at drawings and I love all these artists and I consume their artwork and I love all of these things about like drawing and then you see like, well, I'm missing something because I like this artwork, but they are creating it and they're combining these things. And I look at the Japanese artists like well, a bunch of those, and it's like, well, this guy likes to draw, but he also likes tanks and guns. So he put all the guns inside the thing. I was like, oh, that's cool. And these other artists like cars. And it's like a bunch of cool cars drawing with the anime character. And it's like, oh, that's cool. Then I was like, what do I have?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I don't think I have something. I just like drawing, but drawing is already a drawing. And I like painting. Maybe the girls are drawing. That could be cool. But then like, now I want to try something different. And I start learning how to skate. I learning how to skate different kind of skates, right? like longboard, like skating, even like start going hiking and exploring and learning new things, right? And I also like cars. I'm like, well, like I like cars, but I never put them in my drawings. Now let me put that in my drawings. Or I like this certain aesthetic of Japanese kind of like culture, like the makeup and very like vibrant colors that I like this part of the culture, like in specific in Osaka, and they're like these rave girls with like big eyelashes and weird designs. I'm like, I love that. That's kind of like, I enjoy looking at those things and I put it in my drawing and it has a different flavor. And then that's how you like evolve, right? Or like just drawing girls like skating or playing frisbee and doing things that are like I enjoy.
Interesting, right?
Yeah, that I like skating. I can put like a thing of skating with the cars, or maybe I like exploitation movies, and then this girl with afro shooting a gun, and then some cars, and you start like, then your imagination start like flowing instead of like, what is a cool pose? And I don't know what to draw, but I just want to draw this pose and I don't have an idea what kind of character should I come up with it. Like,
well, and trying to think of it from the perspective that like, oh, what's going to get the most attention? What's going to do best on Instagram, or what's going to be the best YouTube video or something?
Yeah, or like fan art. Like I've done a lot of fan art and I still use it. Like, okay, what do you guys want to see? You want to see this character? I'll draw that character. But there were a few times where I'm going to draw a character right now because it's the right moment to do it. It just happened that I also like it. But sometimes I'm like, you should draw this character. People are loving it. I'm like, no, I don't want to draw that. I don't want to draw that character. It's popular. Okay, cool.
I don't give a shit, dude.
Yeah, I don't care about that. And like, sometimes I read it and I was like, wow, that character looks kind of cool to draw. I think I can do something fun with it, right? But I didn't do it like, oh, I'm going to do it because it sells, or like, oh, it's going to be like the thing that is now. Sometimes you can do it. It might work sometimes. And sometimes sometimes it works because it aligns good with what you want to draw. And then it could be like also popular, right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I mean, it seems like often art is like completely irrational, and it's completely illogical. And I think there is a fair amount of that like business brain that has to be going on for this stuff to be sustainable. But if it becomes nothing but, oh, I should do this because it's a good idea, then I think it's very easy to get burnt out, very easy to get like, why am I doing this? I should have just been a lawyer, I was just doing this because it was a good idea. None of this was a good idea, I made way more money if I was doing X thing, or something.
Yeah, and something that it happens is like you're creating an image, you're creating something that people will look at, and then maybe you're thinking in a technical level, and I did, and sometimes I do in different pieces, like, oh, it has to look like this, and the rendering, and blah, blah, blah. But I realized, like, looking at a lot of, like, concept design back in the 2010s, like, it's just a face, and then a bunch of shit going on around, and there's this face, and there's a bunch of stuff in here, and then this guy with a weapon, looking like this. It's like, okay, so what is in here to me? Okay, it looks nice, but kind of like AI, right? It's like the character is like smiling. I was like, no, I want to put some stories on this shit. And that's like, well, I'm not making comics, but I'm going to make storytelling. So I started studying storytelling by taking storyboard, right? The storyboarding or character design, that interacting with things, and this thing is happening because of this is happening, and the story behind this is because this is happening. So it like to make your pieces actually go beyond like, oh, it's just a drawing. It's like, well, maybe make a little story, something funny that's happening. You know, maybe there's a little animal and this girl is looking at the animal, but the animal is like, I don't know, like pissed off and for a reason, because she's holding something that belongs to that. So there's a dynamic going on. It could be silly, but I like silly things and like cute things from like anime from the 90s. I was like, oh, I want to put something like fun like that. And then you make your own story. And then you got something good because you're connecting like in a kind of like a loop, your painting, right? Oh, what's happening here? I know she's just looking like this. And then why is she looking like that? Yeah. Well, because she's a warrior. Okay, so what the fuck happened? Like she got hurt, or she's going to go to battle, or she's retiring, or she's tired. No, she's just looking beautiful. And then you're like, that's happening like with the AI, right? You look at the drawings like, oh man, look at the rendering. It's so cool. Okay, so what the fuck is this shit telling me? Like, is it telling me like, oh, it looks like even more rendered and nicer? Okay, cool, but
the
source
there and the context and stuff. And I think, I mean, to me, it seems, especially with AI becoming more and more popular, the process is becoming a much more interesting part of the artwork than the final image. You know, I think to the average person, you know, it's like they look at some cool, sick Raven fan art or something that's AR generated, and they're like, oh, that's good enough. That's as far as I'll go. But for a lot of people, just seeing that it's handmade, it's created by a human being, is like it adds to the meaning of it. You know, and I think from like an abstract level, the final result is not what people want at all. They don't give a shit about that. They want like purpose. They want meaning. They want a thing to latch onto and be like, oh man, like I can strive for this, or I can do this thing, or be inspired by someone who's, you know, painted a thing or made this.
You're right, but you will be surprised. There's a lot of people who don't care.
Yeah.
And they use like, oh, it looks cool, man. I love it. I don't care. Who made it? I don't care. It looks cool. I want to have it here.
That's all.
As an artist, you will think more about that way. Or as a consumer, let's say I don't know anything about anime, and I just start watching anime, and look at that drawing. It looks amazing. Oh, I want that. AI, I don't care. Like, just give me that. I just want to put it in my book. And then there you go. Somebody sold something using AI because they just thought it was cool. And it happens like a lot. Like, like I sell some stickers, and then somebody's like, oh, I bought these Reiq stickers, but also got this. And definitely it was a prompt of the same character in different 4 styles that was like together with my stickers. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Shit.
Yeah, right. So then I have to make something different here, or really be unique with my approach, right?
Well, I think there are a couple problems there. Is like AI is getting better at aping people, and then 2, it's like I think internally, like, yeah, there is a difference between the art, the subjective side of it, of us loving the thing that we're trying to create, and the commerce nature of it. You know, yeah, like when it comes to fan art, or when it comes to like a lot of images, people don't really give a shit made by. They just care about Pikachu and, you know, whoever, whatever, right? And I think that I'm curious. I'm really just curious about the future of anime commission prints, like the business of that, the future of concept art, the future of all this stuff, because it seems like it's totally being disrupted from my perspective.
Yeah, I think like when do you think that the AI was coming out, like in 2002, 1? Like at that time, well, my ex-girlfriend and now we were talking about it. It's like, well, what is it? What are we gonna do, man? We're like, we're artists, and now we're not gonna, super depressed about it. But it's like, what can not do with like AI?
Yeah.
What kind of like paint it in watercolor or make it like a canvas and use all the paintings and create something. So now, if you're a digital artist, well, you might be a little bit fucked because digital, right? But like, try to make that into like a painting. Try to make that into like a real drawing that you made with your hand and your ink, and you're inking it, and it looks good.
Yeah.
And it looks nice, and you're like, oh man, I want to own that because that's definitely like real, and somebody made it, and there's a process, and I like the artist, and I want to have that, right? So that's how you can commercialize your work, creating something real, and the price point will be higher, but there's a reason because there's only one thing that you made and it looks cool, and maybe you can go bigger. Maybe some people are like, well, I want to pay 1,000, I want to pay 2,000 for that. It's like, yeah, this stuff is 2,000. Look, all the time it took, all the details is amazing. It looks good. You have to know that it looks good, so you put a good price and then increase it through time. And then maybe you are someday in a gallery, and then now you're selling it for like 10,000, and then you did it, and maybe you have a team of 2 people making it, and now you're like 30, 40, 50, and then you die, and then it says, and now it's like $1 million, and your family have money now because you're, So that could be another way, make it for real, right?
Well, and part of the path is like not knowing, it's like there's no guarantees that even when you go to conventions or whatever, that it's going to work, and I think even 10 to 15 years ago, that's always the case. And I think existentially, AI is just one reason not to do art or not to do art in a very specific way. Whereas like the bigger reason is our own mortality, it's like our own, oh, we're going to fucking die one day, And I think that art is always a risk. Trying to be creative and trying to provide value to someone in kind of a traditional way like that is always a risk. And trying to do it in a way to where you're like, yeah, doing the traditional stuff, I hear a lot of people talking about that, but also being okay with doing the work, going and dealing with like oil painting, trying to figure out how to mix paint, how to like dispose of turpentine and all that kind of stuff that comes with that medium. Gesso canvases and all that. And I think for people that are able to like actually do that work and do it in a way that's like great, well, those are going to be the people that stand out in that particular niche.
Yeah, the sculptures, like something more tangible, but also like not art for just a drawing. Like, well, this is about a character. There's something, I have this world created with these things that are nice, and there's something that you can attach like to this character, right? You're rooting for this character for something, and then now that turns into people invested in the story that you have, not just a painting that you did.
Yeah.
Or the painting could be like related to that, but
a bigger world.
Yeah, it have to be beyond like just like, oh, this is a beautiful painting that I did.
Yeah. Well, I'm a giant fan of Brandon Sanderson. The guy that wrote like Mistborn and My Kings, if you're familiar with those books.
Not much, but I'll look for it.
They're sort of like YA novel type deals, but he's like come up in the past like 15 years or so, and he writes these crazy long books. Like the audiobook for Way of Kings is like 50 hours, and there's like 8 of them, so it's like a few hundred hours of just audiobook. It's crazy. And when he was first making these books, he would hear from people like, oh, people don't want 50-hour long 2,000-page books. They want Hunger Games. They want Twilight. They want all these things. And he kind of swerved and just made this epic thing. And he on Kickstarter recently, he got like an absurd amount of money, like $20, $30, $40 million for his books because he was trying to fund his projects. And I think that comes out just from like, again, like doing the work, just doing it naturally, like growing slowly over time, dealing with the tiny wins versus starting from the very beginning, expecting yourself to be, I'm going to be this great, whatever artist, this great fine artist or something.
Yeah, well, he's a raw mentality already. It's a raw mentality, definitely. Like in my case, when the drawing in Venezuela, I will be the best artist in the school. oh, this is the best artist. Like I took it as my personality, right? Like, oh, this guy is the artist in the class. Which somehow you when you're a teenager, you're trying to find a way to fit somewhere, right? So I'm the artist, and then you become that of being a
that identity, right?
Yeah, but you were saying before, sorry?
Trying to like have a very specific idea, or trying to do things in the wrong way, right? Trying to expect too much of yourself too soon.
Yeah. So I did that became my personality when I was in school, focus on that. But then later on, and like as you mature, you're like, nobody gives a fuck. You are the best or the worst. That's just in your head. There's always going to be somebody better. There's always going to be who needs to improve. You're always going to be somewhere in between. There's going to be somebody better. But obviously, if you start comparing and looking down, then you will like, oh, yeah, I'm so good. And that's just a fucking stupid way of thinking, because it's like, well, we are growing. Everybody's growing. And you start thinking like that. You stop kind of growing because you're already feeling comfortable that you're really good enough. That's a good point that you made it, right? And I never thought about it like, oh, well, I'm this artist and I'm really good with these things. I'm happy with the stuff that I do. And I'm not like, oh, this is not good. Like, I need to improve. Like, I'm proud. Like, I did that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So.
Well, and I think it's trying to capitalize on those little wins as much as possible. And they're trying to be like if you're just starting out, being like, oh, I drew a line, that's awesome. Not being like nihilistic about it, being actually genuinely proud about that, and slowly building up to drawing a face maybe, or drawing a car, or whatever you care about, abstract art, whatever. And then slowly building up to doing that. Oh, I did one illustration, I did one single figure illustration, being very happy with that,
Yeah.
And I think it's like, that's the way somebody has an art career. That's the way anyone has any creative career in general, means that like building up over time, doing a ton of experiments, failing all the time, and just,
I wouldn't say failing, but yeah.
Well, yeah, but failing, and I think honestly, the hardest part about being a creative person is not the skill at all. It's like having the, I guess, mental fortitude or arrogance or naivete or whatever you want to call it, to be like, to continually be trying to yourself to be like, oh, eventually this is going to work out.
Yeah, like you said, you did. I did a line. I did a little sketch. I did these things. Like, it's there. That's what like when I do my training or my workouts on YouTube, like drawing the figure or the face. It's like, just by the fact that you're here and you have your pencil and you're like doing some lines and you're trying to get it, you're doing more than like a lot of people who are like, I want to be an artist someday, but I don't think I have the skills. Like, bro, you haven't even tried. So you're already doing beyond like a lot of like a big chunk, like 80%. Because like, you might think there's like a lot of artists, like they are, but it's not like a lot of artists. It's like, there's some artists there, but you are doing and you're taking the time and you're doing this and you have to take it like, well, I did this today and good. That's what I like doing with like learning like drums or piano. Like I see these people like, play, but I'm like, ding, 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 ding. But the next day, ding, 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 ding. Like, oh shit, that you feel like the progress and you're learning something new and you humble yourself like, oh man, I'm not that good as that guy in YouTube that just play that and I want to be like that. Then like your brain is already like rotting, like you're destroying the pleasure of just pressing the notes or like doing something until it fits. But when it fits, like, oh, what's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? What's the next one? You're like, oh man, you're playing the music, you're feeling the stuff and your things start like fitting in and like, now I can do something. Like, I'm learning this stuff, but I cannot make my own song yet. I don't know how to make a song. Like, I can play some drums. Maybe I start somewhere and maybe study some music theory and then maybe a little bit of this and that, ping, boom, ping, and ping, boom, ping, ping. Okay. And then now it works like, oh, I have my first song. I'm proud. Maybe it's like as generic as it can be, but I made it myself. So I'm happy. Maybe the next one is going to be something nice. But I'm not like, oh, I'm going to be the next drummer for this band and I'm going to be playing piano and I have a concert. Like, no, I don't think about that. I think we're like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to find some friends and we're going to play together. And that's going to be the cool thing of just doing this. So I'm not aiming to be any professional pianist or any kind. If it happens, amazing. But I don't care. I'm just enjoying the process and growing from zero, right? Because you spend a lot of time drawing, you're like, well, how it feel to start again? What if I start again from zero? People are afraid to start from zero anything. A lot of people. Oh man, I'm gonna cut this and I'm gonna start from zero again to see how it feels the progress and I'm doing it right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's that saying, it's like trying to be a masterful beginner, and I think it is very easy to get caught up, even if you're like an experienced artist or draftsman or something, to be caught up in not being creative, to just be going through the motions, where you can be an extremely creative beginner. And the only thing that might be different is just the outcome or something, but the feeling might be way better as the beginner than as the experienced person. I think the goal, again, there was that other saying, it's like the goal of art is try to paint like a kid. You're trying to get into that mental place to where you're not really judging yourself. You're not, being like, oh, if I don't do this, then I'm not going to be able to make a living from it. And if I don't make a living from it, then I'm a loser or something. Yeah. And being in a place where it's like, oh yeah, cool orcs, or, sexy ladies, or, oh, I just want to draw figures, or I draw sick cars or spacemen or something. And being okay with that being all it is, that's self-expression, being honest and true and who you actually are,
Yeah, and enjoy things, like enjoy, because at the end we're gonna go. I was just listening to some stuff like yesterday while I was painting, and that you're working for this, and then you find a name and you wanna get respect, and you wanna be like showing your work and all these things, and then you're gone, and then your pieces are there, and maybe some people remember, and then times move on, and then some people might forget about you unless you're like really like unique, but you don't know that, but it's it's just part of the river of the flow. So you're worrying too much about something that really like is not that important in the grand scheme of things, right? So enjoy the ride while you're like in here, meet other people and do these things and grow and have fun, and obviously have a way to survive and that things make sense for you, which is like something that I want to be an artist and I'm going to quit everything. And you have money for tomorrow? Like, we need to pay these things. No, but I'm going to be an artist and it's suffering.
I'm going to give up everything to the art.
Yeah, then you're like, man, you better have like a job and transition through it. Have a little bit of a plan. And then also realize if you're like, maybe I'm not improving. Maybe I kind of find a way to connect these things, right? And because it will be kind of sad to be like 10 years and you still like not being able to draw something. Maybe there's a reason that you don't know why you cannot do it. Maybe you're not finding the right way, but maybe you also come to terms like, maybe I should try something different, and maybe something different will lead to me finding my voice, or maybe I need to inform myself more and get more influence of things in my life and experience, and then put that out in your work, instead of like, well, all that I think in my head is so good and what I'm making is the right decision. And like, okay, man, like.
Well, yeah, I think part of the whole thing is actually more of like a conversation with the universe. If you want to get super existential, like, again, going back to the very beginning when you were talking about Nomen, like, I'm sure when you were there, all you want to do was fit in. All you wanted to do is have the answer. I want to work at Sony, or I want to work at Blizzard, or whatever. And authentically mean that, but the universe telling you, no, that's not your path, that's someone else's path. But that's totally okay. It's like if drawing and painting isn't someone's exact path, maybe it's music, maybe it's something outside of creating, maybe it's being an accountant, maybe it's being a plumber. That's totally fine too,
Yeah.
And everyone, like, I think the goal is just to be okay with the way that you spend your time, no matter what it is.
Yeah, and it has meaning. Like, whatever you're doing, it has a meaning, that you're finding a moment that you are like contributing, and it has an impact through things, right? I think like if I have to say something, but this is like very like, I don't know, like sometimes I think about certain people to send the message, but like which one it is, right? Like, I mean, if you're an artist, like, try to open yourself to other source of knowledge, not only art but also like business, and how can you like be a successful artist, because you're successful by doing something and completing something like a piece, but also successful at like, oh, I can sustain myself and I can help other people and I can teach other people and I can reach other people like and knowing that they're enjoying my work and finding certain kind of emotion when they see the piece that I do. But be open to like show your work. A lot of people don't even want to show it. So show the work and just flow with the river, like show the work, and nobody starts being a good artist or already like known or anything. It's like, yes, everybody started like doing the piano, beep, 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 and then they go to a certain level. Something faster, something slower, but also understand that everybody has their own journey.
Yeah.
That's important. Like, don't compare to yourself. Like, oh man, that person's so good and he's doing all the things, and yeah, but he's not you, and you're doing your own journey. You're going your way, and you decide like, do you want to be part of something bigger? Or you want to be your own voice? Like, you want to be integrated to some people, like, and maybe you want to do all of that at the same time. You know?
Yeah. Well, and it takes time, and it takes a lot of exploration, and none of it is obvious, and it's all hard, and sometimes it's not. You know. And,
yeah. Sometimes it's not, and you try to find answers. Sometimes like asking people, like when I was like probably like your age, like almost like 30. I was like, oh, I'm gonna be 30. I don't have kids, and what's gonna happen in the future? Like, how these people deal with their life, like having a normal life, but also being an artist, and how do they do these things? And then like, well, everybody's different. Like, maybe you don't have kids, maybe you have some kids now, and then you feed your art with your kids. And it's that beautiful thing to have. Or maybe no, maybe you have more experience and then you feed your art with that experience. So as long as as long as you're enjoying and comparing, you're not comparing yourself, but comparing different like experience. Oh, this person had experience and this experience, or this way of acquiring this knowledge and this other one, and then mixing everything and then having a result.
Yeah. Cool. Well, how should people follow you online?
Well, you can find my name, Reiq, and you can find it on my YouTube, Instagram, Reiq, and I'll be there.
Description as well. Sick. Cool. Well, thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, that was good, man.
Cool. Sweet. Yeah. Again, appreciate you doing that.